We fade into the 20th Century Fox logo and the fanfare, pretty infamous imagery and music in and of itself. I guess most people would associate this with Star Wars, kind of preparing them for the big, fun space adventure, but this is anything but a rousing space opera, and here we are in the darkness of space, accompanied by very ominous music, sounds, very subtle sections of the score by Jerry Goldsmith here. Great ambience to it, almost like a space wind. Almost, I think it really sets the tone perfectly. And we have the title cards here, which I love. Goes kind of slowly, and slowly but surely reveals as the cast crew are being listed. It reveals the title Alien, which I think is pretty neat. I'm kind of unsure why they didn't follow that tradition with all the title sequences in the movie, in the movie series, I should say. Like with Aliens, they kind of did it, like the blue glowing titles that zoom in and flash into the screen. And then they pretty much abandoned that by Alien 3, but I thought it was kind of almost like a trademark of the series. And we have the slow reveal once more, and I think once it passes this planet, we're going to see the full title. I guess this will be a matte painting, and it's something that I do really think sets the mood effectively. And you're not quite sure what's being revealed, but then you're like, okay, these little symbols, I think Ridley Scott referred to them as hieroglyphic-like, directed by Ridley Scott, the great Ridley Scott. We have Alien. The title is finally revealed here, and you're going to be watching Alien with me for the next hour and 56 minutes or so. This is a fan commentary track, and kind of the reason why I wanted to do it is because, well, it's April 26, 2016. It's the first official, quote, Alien Day, which LV-426 is the name of the planet, so that's kind of the clever reference there. And we've had that kind of best association with certain days, like obviously going back to Star Wars again, May the 4th, May the 4th be with you. That's kind of the official Star Wars Day. And so now we have LV-426, April 26, 426. I think that's a pretty good day, as if we'd really need an excuse to watch Alien. I've seen this movie many times, and hopefully if you've seen the movie many times and already seen all the commentaries, either with Ridley Scott or with the cast and crew or other fan commentaries, you'd hopefully get some enjoyment out of this as I watch the movie and give some thoughts on it. Particularly with the great production here, the production set design. I think it's brilliant the way it kind of sets up, almost subconsciously for the audience. It kind of maps out the location. It's a very claustrophobic movie, but there are very distinct areas that we're kind of getting mapped out here. We're kind of seeing now on this tour of the spaceship that'll come into play later, like you see right there. The little spacesuits in the background that would come into play later when they land on the planet. Little ladder that Ripley climbs up, she's frantically going, up and down ladders through the ship towards the end of the movie. And the cockpit here, which kind of, maybe aside from like the mess hall and like the dining area, would be kind of their main convening area. It's kind of where they're always hanging out. And I'm sure, like a lot of people, when I first saw this movie, there's two heads there. I did think they were people. You see these helmets and they start lighting up. They're looking at a computer, but then you look a little closer. Oh, emergency helmet, what's that? And we find out that it's they're just autopilots or something like that. And we see them kind of bringing up the computer information, like, okay, they're where they want to be right now, or are they? Or has a distress signal been sent? So that kind of puts the idea in your head already, and it's kind of something that I would say is a little bit more clear upon rewatching, kind of seeing exactly what's going on and why they're being woken up when they're being woken up, which is right now. So that's kind of the misdirect. We think it's people, but of course the camera's slowly panning in here, in this nice white area with the already kind of the robes ready for when they wake up. The door swoops open, and we see their uh, sleeping pods, their hyper sleep tubes, or whatever you want to call them. Uh, slowly zooming in. So great, and just really slowly going through uh, kind of this tour. And this would be the end of the tour where we finally meet the people, the humans that we're going to be with throughout this whole movie. Here they are waking up, and of course, tactfully, they're all topless. They're wearing some kind of, God, I don't know, look like diapers or something. Maybe they are diapers because you gotta figure you're in hyper sleep, and I mean, you can't get up to go to the bathroom, right? I mean, we've all been there. We have to, wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, but they're kind of stuck where they are, and they have the little sensors on them. But anyway, tactfully, it in the front row where the camera's viewing, it's the men because of course the women, they're in the same getups, but they're topless. So maybe we don't want to quite see that, or maybe we do. I don't know. But on this, and the great John Hurt, the amazing John Hurt, who I love, and he's the first, and I think that's another cool thing too. He's just in him waking up here. He's kind of the first human we latch on to, sort of. It's like almost like an instinctual thing. Like the first, everyone else is sleeping, so we're like, hey, this guy's awake. He's doing something, so maybe he's a guy that we can, trust in the audience. So we kind of sort of subconsciously just get attached to him uh, in some way or another. But it kind of pays off later when he's the first person to bite it. So, but looking at this cast assembled now, and panning through the activity, they're waking up, and on this day, on Alien Day 426, enjoying the movie again. Who knows how many times I've watched this movie, but one thing I've been reflecting on, the movie, its 40th anniversary is close approaching. Hard to believe it's that old, but one thing that I think is great, I mean, the whole cast, everybody, except for maybe Balahi Badejo, who played the alien, they're all still alive. And I think that's, kind of shows how quickly this movie became a classic. Like, kind of think of like the great eternal classic. Think of maybe older movies, and Gone with the Wind, or whatever. Even great horror movies from the past, like Nosferatu, or whatever. But those are so old. But here we still have a tie to the present, where these are still actors, kicking around, still alive. I mean, Sigourney Weaver, she's become a huge star because of this movie. I mean, this was her breakthrough role, and the cast is still alive. Kind of like I think about things like that, like the Bond actors. Every actor who played Bond is still alive, which is, I think, is pretty cool. But anyway, we have Tom Skerritt here in the mother control room, which is kind of I don't know, maybe a little bit cheesy looking set. Like it's almost like the womb of the ship, which I guess makes sense because this is where he convenes with Mother, and we have the little Christmas lights bleeping and blooping, and it's a nice set, I think. And we have the silly little keyboard there, which everything looks outdated about this movie, but hasn't lost a bit of its charm. In my opinion, even that great computer imagery, it just looks so cool. Like, obviously it's like, yeah, it looks like DOS, so maybe at the time they're like, oh, well, DOS computers would just be faster and have more information. They won't, be like iPhones. Like, who could have predicted a fucking iPhone all this time ago? So there's that. So when you think about how sort of dated it is, I mean, it definitely isn't as horrible as some other movies, and that's one of the weird things I thought was like a complaint about Prometheus. How everyone was like, "Wow, the technology is so much better in Prometheus," and there's going to be arguments against that, where it's like, okay, well, the Nostromo, it was basically, truckers in space. That was sort of the premise of the movie, where they're just kind of the everyman. They're not like super uh, space adventurers, experts in exploration. They just kind of come upon this whole uh, situation by accident. They happen to be at the wrong place at the right time, and they intercept that transmission from the planet LV-426, and they have to deal with it. So you could argue, hey, these guys are lower budget guys. They have inferior technology. And the crew from Prometheus, obviously, they have the bucks behind it. Was it like $1 billion or whatever? Peter Wayland, the Wayland-Yutani guy, Guy Pearce in his Texas Chainsaw old man makeup, financing the whole thing. And I always thought that was a silly argument one way or another, because, I mean, obviously the truth behind it is Alien was made in 1979. So, obviously, a movie made in 2012 is going to have better effects. So, I mean, fuck continuity, let's show off some effects. But, whatever. won't get into that too much. But here they're all kind of still confused. What's going on? Dallas, Tom Skerritt has the down low, has a straight dope. Well, some of you may have figured out we're not home yet, and he lets them know they're only halfway there. They got woken up in the middle of the night, so to speak, because they've intercepted this transmission. So I really do like the relationships between everyone in this crew, because you got to figure whatever they're doing. I think it's what they're just towing, mining things, or space spices, like Han Solo. Wouldn't that be something if like Han Solo like hijacked their ship? Anyway, uh, they're just regular folk. Look at Parker in his silly Hawaiian shirt. Harry Dean Stanton just has this great demeanor in Parker, where he's kind of not Parker, Brett. What's his name? Right. Whatever. Anyway, what was I saying? They just have this relationship, like you can tell, like just from this conversation here, the way they're interacting with each other, their attitudes. We can tell one kind of what their ranks are. Yaphet Kotto, Brett and Parker. Yeah, Yaphet Kotto's Parker, and Harry Dean Stanton is Brett. They're the two kind of lower level guys. They're the ones complaining about money because they're not making that much money, and they're in maintenance sort of, and they're not the ones flying the ship. They're just kind of almost janitorial. And we have the science officer Ian Holm, Ash, of course, the captain Dallas, and other officers. So we can tell the rankings, but we can also tell kind of the relationships and how even among 7 people on this ship, there's already like cliques. They all eat together, but obviously, you see Dallas and Ripley, they kind of hang out together a little bit more. It seems like they have a more in sync relationship. With Brett and Parker, they're kind of hanging around, maybe smoking, maybe they, have a few beers together or something like that. But I think it creates a really realistic atmosphere, which in a science fiction movie like this, where it does involve something very out of the ordinary. In this case, obviously, an alien being that happens upon their ship. It would just be uninteresting if they're all like experts. You know what I mean? Like if they're all just like, we're this crew of special science technicians or whatever. Here they seem like normal people, and they have normal interactions, and that it really kind of goes to show in sort of the improvised dialogue. Like there's always going to be different stories from the cast, crew, writers, whatever. How much of it exactly was improvised, how much of it was, straight to the script. It's hard to say. I'd say probably it's a good shot that at the very least, I'd say 25% of the dialogue, kind of the back and forth between the crew and things like that. I'd say it's a good bet that at least 25% of that is improvised. But here they're landing on this ship, and it's even this something it kind of shows is a process, right? Again, something that sort of, I don't know, separates it from other science fiction movies. Other movie like they'd be like, okay, we have to go on this planet. Let's land. Kaboom! There, we're on the planet. Here they show it's a very delicate process because I mean, one, this is not like landing your average airplane. This is a huge ship. I forget how big they claim it to be in a little title card in the beginning, or how much freight they're carrying, or what have you. But it's an advanced spaceship. Quite an expensive piece of machinery for the time, as one of the suits in Aliens puts in the sequel. So it's a process to go through the landing, and two, it's probably not something that they're used to, and maybe some atmosphere problems or whatever. Um, so they show this as this whole process, and this is like a maybe a 2 minute sequence or so, but you got to figure in maybe some other movie that completely bypassed that. What's 2 minutes, right? Let's just show them land on the fucking planet. Let's get to the fucking planet. Let's get to the fucking alien attacking the people. So I mean that is something that I value in this movie because it has the details like that, and it is a lot of people call it slow burn movie, which it is, and just reveling in this great visual. Like look at that. That's it's a special effect that they call. What did they use before CGI? Oh yeah, like miniatures, models. Like look how great that looks. Even like the little lights on it and the little steam coming out. That looks amazing, and it holds up tremendously, I'd say. Something from 1979, like a miniature from 1979 for a spaceship like this. I mean, it holds up a lot better than say a CGI spaceship from, let's say, 1999. Like, look at a movie like, just for example, Lost in Space. Or the update of the cheesy TV series where what was his William Hurt and Matt LeBlanc were in the movie. It's like, let's fly in our spaceship. It looks like It looks like a fucking cartoon. And don't even get me started on that monkey thing. But anyway, I'm getting off the track here. We're talking about Alien. So here they are. They're landing on the planet, and everything looks pretty good. So wasn't the best of landings. A little rough. I love the way Dallas and Ripley are kind of mirrored off of each other, like both with their like fists to their forehead. They're like, "What the fuck did we just fucking do? Fuck's sake!" So even like subtle things like that, you can kind of gauge their relationships, and I guess I mean it's worth noting. Now is as good of a time as any. How they're always kind of either like rumor. Well, I don't want to say rumors, but like kind of implications, and even kind of stories about earlier drafts of the screenplay where supposedly Ripley and Dallas kind of sort of had like a relationship going, which I don't know. I mean, I would say the less the better, and I think just in like really 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 like subtle implications, I think it works a lot better because you kind of think, well, again, it's a tightly knit crew. They have a good rapport between all each other. Some more than others, but they all get along. They seem like this tightly knit crew that has to deal with each other, make the best of it in certain situations. Maybe they don't quite trust everyone. Like Ash is a little, lonerish sort of, and he's I don't know something about him. He seems a little bit different, almost inhuman. Um, but you kind of think like, oh well, maybe this guy's sleeping with this guy. This guy's sleeping with that girl. Wait, did I just say this guy's sleeping with this guy? Hey, Brett and Barker. I don't know. Something's going on there, but kind of just to make a supposition about it instead of like outright uh, saying it or showing it. Like if they did have like, let's say, not even like a sex scene. Let's just say even like an embrace. Not even like a kiss. Just like I don't know something where Ripley and Dallas like hug or something. It's like, oh, be careful or something like that. Be careful out there in the shafts, Dallas. You come back to me, Dallas. I don't know. That was just so stupid. So I'm glad they kept it to a minimum. And I think there was, and maybe it is on the DVD actually. Now I think about it, or DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, where not so much between Ripley and Dallas, but in a scene between Ripley and Veronica Cartwright. They're talking about Ash, and she asks her, "Have you ever slept with Ash?" She's like, "No, ew." But it's more about her kind of, I don't know, suspicions about Ash. Maybe he's a robot or something. I guess, like, was she thinking maybe he's a robot? Did anybody have a suspicion that he's a robot? I don't know. But he was a robot. I mean, that's pretty much it. So here we are. We're going on the planet. We're all in our spaceships now, and well, spacesuits now. So we have the three members of the crew. They're getting ready, and it's not the most friendly atmosphere. And that was one thing that I thought was impressive. Again, going back to Prometheus, like they really intensified kind of the harsh atmosphere of the planet. But look here, it looks so great. Just like kind of the dust flying, the wind, the smoke, all that shit. It's pretty amazing and pretty harsh. And here we have Ash just kind of looking around and monitoring things. Like to watch this movie kind of again and again and look at, oh, that motherfucker, look at him smiling like a little fucking asshole. But he knows. He knows exactly what's going on, and that's what's so evil about this character, and why, I think the sort of, if you want to call it a twist with him, turning out to be a robot, if you want to call it a twist, I think that's why it works so well, is because you can go back to it, and you kind of look at these scenes where he's like, kind of looking, making sure everything's all right, and there's more of that later, but this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Again, it just kind of shows the whole relationship. Like, they're talking about money once again. Brett and Parker, they're complaining. She's like, "Don't worry, we're guaranteed by law to get a bonus for doing this. Get a share of whatever the company gives them." And he's like, "What, Ripley? What?" And they turn up the steam a little bit. "Why don't you just fuck off?" And they're like, "What, Ripley? What? What? Ripley, come back here." I think this is a cute scene. It's fun. See? He turns the steam back off. He's like, "What? Son of a bitch." Kaboom! Puts the steam back on. Something wrong with that ship. They better fix it in a hurry. Again, look at this great... I guess it's like a combination of miniatures, matte paintings, what have you. But, man, that looks so good. I think in some of the scenes, maybe not here when they're, on the actual ground of the planet, whatever you want to call it, but I think when they're actually seeing the space jockey, I think they use like little kids in the suits to make it look bigger. But I think maybe in some of these scenes too. I'm not too sure. Again, we have an unsteady relationship between Ash and Ripley, and they're kind of cold to each other, and you can tell. Again, it's just so great that you can tell the relationship. She doesn't have a trust of him. She really doesn't, and whether he gives a shit or not, who cares? And we have binary code, so if anyone can interpret that code, let me know. Sigourney Weaver, great shot there, great pose. I love the again the hand on the forehead and the foot up to the console, and we have a little Jonesy here, and we see the sun setting on this planet. I feel like this is an Arnold Schwarzenegger commentary where I'm just like describing the movie. It's like they're in there, the spacesuits, and the camera's shaking, and you see they have a light on the top of the space element, and they're walking through, and see the steam goes up, and they're walking through the spaceship, and it's very scary. Anyway, I'm not gonna do that. I should do that through the whole commentary track. Maybe not. But this, I think this is just, no, that's not an effect. That's got to be like a light in the background, I think. But that's supposed to be the sun. And again, I think I didn't finish my thought on Prometheus. But again, they kind of, there's Dare looked really cool. That's a matte painting. That looks fucking awesome. But I went to see that in 3D, and seeing the shards and the dust and the residue and the smoke and stuff. That was the best part of Prometheus's 3D. Like, I guess it was shot in 3D, but I don't know. Not everything looks great in 3D. I think it's just like in the 80s. It's going to be ultimately something that is a fad, and people are going to get sick of it, especially sick of paying extra bucks for it. I don't know if they charged extra for those fucking red and blue glasses back in the 80s, but I think people are getting sick of paying much and not too much back. But I gotta say the effects in Prometheus, particularly with the wind, with the residue, with the dust flying at the screen, that looked awesome. And I think there is kind of a misconception about 3D and what it's supposed to do. To be fair, it just kind of creates, I don't know, more depth into certain scenes where things kind of stand out a little bit more. You always kind of think 3D, oh, something's going to fly to the screen, and I'm going to be really impressed. I'm going to be so shocked by this coming to the screen um, that I'm going to duck in the seat or something like that. But I don't know. It just kind of it makes it look more, well, three-dimensional. So it just kind of makes it a little bit more immersive. I really do think, honestly, whether it, probably not ultimately worth it for full theatrical re-releases, but I'd love to see more movies, maybe possibly if, cost effective enough for, Blu-ray releases to be converted to 3D. I think a movie like Alien, that'd be amazing in 3D. Like, the all the imagery of this movie. Like, I kind of think to myself, I would look in 3D, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. And one thing I'd talk about with this not anniversary, but the special Alien Day 426, LV 426, April 26th, Alien Day. In some areas of North America, they are re-releasing the movie into theaters. Which, damn, I live in Canada, so maybe it's not going on there. But every so often, it'll get a revival. I do think certain chains, certain theaters have these, not reels, but I guess digital theater stadium projection ready copies, because I see a lot of movies seem to come back. So I did see this movie, and it was actually a little bit after Prometheus. I think it was a year later. It was in June 2013. I got to see Alien in the fucking theaters, man. It was fucking awesome. So I was glad to have at least seen it once in theaters, but I would have liked to today for Alien Day. And I do think it's a movie that, while it is slower, and a lot of people, they do kind of make complaints, or not even complaints, just voice their opinion that it does move a little bit slower. Like, here we are, it's like just about half an hour into the movie, and really what can you say about what's happened in the movie other than, they're in a spaceship, they woke up, they got a transmission, they landed on a planet, here they are on the planet. That's pretty much it, but it's setting the atmosphere, which so many movies don't do, and in very subtle ways, they establish the characters, which they don't have to have a backstory or any shit like that. Like, one thing that drives me nuts, and we've seen it in movies like Alien versus Predator, like Predators too. I don't know what it is with this franchise, where you'll always have like some character just in a desperate attempt to give them some kind of characterization. Talk about, oh, I have kids back home. You want to see pictures of my kids? Which drives me bananas, because that's not character development. We don't need to know about these guys' kids. I'm sure they all have kids. And I would say that's a good reason why, in Aliens, the sequel, the whole, subplot about Ripley's daughter may have been cut out. But even that, I mean, it made better character development, not just saying, oh, she has a kid who died, and, Newt is a surrogate kid to her, but whatever. Anyway, what I'm saying, to get back on the track of what I'm talking about, seeing it in theaters, I do think it holds up despite the pace. Like the version I'm watching right now, and hopefully the one that you have queued with me right now. If you don't, the timing's completely off. Um, I'm watching the 1979 version, and the version I saw in theaters in 2013, which I guess was the 10th anniversary of the director's cut re-release. It was the director's cut, and in very very subtle ways, its pace is tuned up a little bit. Some cuts to scenes here and there, some snips almost unnoticeable. Some scenes move a lot quicker. Even then, it still has the slow pace. But I mean, audiences can take it. Audiences can deal with a movie like this, which it still shocks me. How ADD the filmmakers think we are. We can handle a movie that moves a little bit slower. So I watched the movie. This was not a special anniversary or anything like that. It wasn't anything unique about it. It was just this theater. It's a chain, Cineplex theaters, which they have in Canada. I don't know if they have in America, but they just had what was it, on demand Mondays, or maybe that's where I got the idea. Anyway, on demand Mondays or whatever, where people would vote from a list of movies, and they would play that movie in the theater. And the movie that won the votes was Alien, and so the theater was packed. Doesn't hurt that the admission was, I think it was like $6 or something like that. But the theater was packed, and everyone was into it. You could tell, like, when you're in an audience full of people, especially when it's a horror movie like this, especially when it has the tense scenes, you can tell when people are on the edge of your seat. You kind of peripherally see kind of squirming in the seats. You kind of feel kind of the tension in the audience. And you can feel the engagement. You really can, which is why I think, again, I'm going on another tangent here, but which is why I think the theatrical movie going experience is never going to end, and why I think we should have generally more revivals like this. We should see classic movies come back to theaters. It just won't beat the the home viewing experience. I mean, it will beat the home viewing experience. It just can't compare. You can have the biggest TV in the world. You can have greatest sound system. It's not going to compare to a theater. I myself, I have a great sound system, great projector, huge screen with the projector. It almost feels like I'm in a cheap little theater when I watch a movie. I'm watching this one on the TV because the projector makes a big noise. So throughout this whole track, you just be hearing. So I don't want to deal with that, but it just doesn't compare to the movie-going experience. But anyway, Alien, the audience really got into, and you could tell. And there was another on-demand day where they actually showed 2001: A Space Odyssey, and God love Stanley Kubrick. God love that movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey, a classic, a movie that in a lot of stylistic ways inspired Alien too, including the technology used and all that. God love it. It just didn't retain the audience's attention and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, I mean, altogether, it's not a movie for everyone, but Alien certainly is, despite its slow moving. And here we have the egg, the infamous egg. This was on all the posters and everything like that, even though it was a little bit different in the posters, but such an iconic visual of the movie, an iconic kind of trait to this creature, because it has this whole lifestyle. So we open it up, and Kane there, John Hurt, he's looking at what happens when a mysterious alien egg opens up. You look a little bit closer. Yeah, just fucking look a little bit closer, John Hurt. You're a genius. Yeah, look, something's moving in there. You want to take a closer look? Yeah, you're really smart, aren't you? Like a science officer? Yeah, boom, big scare. That still scares me, honestly. I don't know what it is. There's few scenes that every single time, even when I know it's coming, will always scare me, and that's one of them. Other one is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. You know, when they're in the radio station and Leatherface comes out. It's like, kabah! And there's probably others too, but those are the two main ones. I remember the facehugger in Alien. There's Ripley with Jonesy the cat. Seven main members of the cast, aside from Bloje Badejo, who played the alien, and I guess the actress who voiced Mother, if those two technically count. All still alive, but I suppose Jonesy, unless it's like, super Ninja Cat, probably dead, which is sad. One thing I'll take from the Alien series, and I'll talk about this now. So many characters. Look at this movie. With 7 main characters, 6 die. Ripley's left, surviving. She goes with the Marines. They die. Except for what? Hicks, Newt, and Bishop the robot. Then, bad luck of all bad luck. Ship crashes. Everyone dies but Ripley again. But then Ripley dies at the end of Alien 3. But I take solace in the fact that in Aliens, in the first act of the film, what does Ripley say to Jonesy, who also survives? You little shithead, you're staying here. So, above it all, the Alien trilogy or quadrilogy or however many movies you want to accept as officially movies. I personally don't accept the Alien vs. Predator movies have anything to do with anything. But throughout it all, throughout the whole series, Jonesy survived. So I think that's something to take solace in. I think that's a wonderful thing to think of. You little shithead, you're staying here. Jonesy lives. So we're opening up the helmet here, very delicately. We're going to reveal a great effect. And that's the face hugger there. Ooh, that crack. Even that cracking noise and like the reaction shots before we finally get a good look at it. Boom, there it is. The face hugger. Such a great effect. Again, probably today that would be CGI, but here it's I guess kind of a rubber creature thing. They're all looking and it's like, what the fuck is that thing? I can't imagine what it would have been like, to see the movie and not know, see the movie back in 1979, not know what was going on, not know anything about the movie, not like it would just be amazing. And you think, okay, it's a movie about an alien, so is that the alien? I guess so. But here we're starting to get little hints about how these things work. So it starts off with an egg. And I feel like I'm explaining it to everybody who already knows it, but it's snagging onto him pretty tight there. And these facehuggers come out, and they're implanting the seed, the alien seed, raped. So I think it was like the Dan O'Bannon interview on one of the making ofs, like, okay, what about this? What about to get the creature on the ship? We had all these ideas about it stowing away, things like that. But what if it screws one of them? It's like, what? Screws one of them? No, stay with me on this one. So that was kind of where that stemmed from, and a brilliant idea. It's such a sort of like this perverse thing, sort of this, unholy kind of. It's a rape. That's what it really is, and that's really what establishes the aggressive nature of this creature. The creature, which you never really know why they want it. The company, why they want it, for whatever reason that they want it, for their bioweapons division is what they say. How they expect to train it or maintain it, who knows? But it's such. The thing is this creature just is designed by birth to kill, and all it does is kill, and that's its nature, which is just this horrible entity, which makes it so terrifying. It's not going to stop. It's just kill, kill, kill. That's what it wants to do. So that's a pretty terrifying thought. But we have the life cycle kind of established here, and another important trait, which everyone knows when it comes to these aliens, is the blood, the acid blood. So this is a great scene. He's about to cut. I don't know what that machine is. I guess it's like a laser cutter or something. They cut the little knuckle there. Kabloom! Oh my God, look at that. That's a great effect too. I don't know what that is. Again, today it will all be CGI, but here it's, I don't know, it's like styrofoam and hot soup. I don't know. I really don't. But this is a really great scene. Where they're all panicking to see that this won't eat through the entire fucking ship, and see it's like melting, just like a little tiny bit. And you even see Yaphet Kotto there. He's like putting his sleeve above his nose because it must stink really bad. Like imagine like the burning metal smell. Again, I feel like I'm going back to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, yeah, and it has the acid blood, and they're all going down the stairs, and they want to see it's sizzling acid, and it's dripping, and then they look at it, and he says, "Don't get under it," and then he takes a look, and he says, hey, do you have a pen there? You want to give me a pen?" And then Harry Dean Stanton, he gives him a pen or a pencil, and he gives it to him, and he takes a look, and he sees that it stops. Anyway, I love the confused looks on Harry Dean Stanton's face throughout this whole movie. Probably, I'd say an underrated character. He's kind of without, he has the jokes here and there. Like he's always like, right. What do you always say, right, Brett? Right. He seems like kind of I don't know, the least intelligent person there, which of everyone on this ship, in this crew, on the Nostromo, I'd have a beer with him. Look at him getting his pen back. He's like, fuck, man. Well, okay. I love that. He's sort of the comedic relief without being too obvious a comedic relief, right? So, right? So I like that. And I do think he's an underrated character in the movie. So I mean, like obviously at this point in the movie, they're desperate to get the hell off this planet, and pretty much however they can get off, they'll get off. You know, they don't pay them as much. They don't treat them as well. But these are the two guys that are gonna get off the planet for you and fix things, and gonna make sure that they get home. So you know, let's give them their fair share dues. I think they're the unsung heroes. But again, we have another kind of quiet scene. This is another scene where kind of like I'd say like the well, no, I would say it is like the first time since the opening of the movie. We have the camera kind of slowly panning around a location, kind of setting up the atmosphere a little bit more. And we're kind of wondering whose point of view is this? And then we reveal Ash. And again, for those of you who've seen the movie a million times and know exactly, the twist, I swear to God, if by any chance whatsoever your first time watching this happens to be you pulled up a YouTube video that says Alien fan commentary and it's my channel, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna watch this for no reason and watch Alien for the very first time. I pity you, and I'm very sorry, but thank you. So we have Ash. So he's monitoring the progress. He knows exactly what it is, and how much he actually knows is, I guess, still a mystery. Like you got to figure he has some debriefing on this from Mother, possibly from whoever the powers that be are at the company at Wheel and Yutani. So he must have had some type of briefing where either via the computer or upon his manufacturing, his birth, or whatever you want to call it when it's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot. He must have had some information like, okay, this is gonna happen. Make sure they go here. Make sure he had this standoff with Ripley earlier about getting him through the airlock. Ripley, who if protocol would have been followed, which she knew to follow, none of this would have happened. Everyone would have been fine. Well, I mean, probably Lambert, Dallas, and Kane would have all been dead, but at least they saved the people on the ship. If she would have followed the protocol, everything would have been fine, but Ash broke that, and here they are kind of, for the first time since it happened, since things are a little bit calmer now, they have, seemingly the situation contained, they can actually kind of talk about it, and she's pissed off, and, Ripley's one of these characters who just doesn't take any shit like that, and I think this establishes her as that type of character. No nonsense. Like, we see these types of scenes like intensified times 10 in like her, encounters with a Burke in Aliens, right? So, here she's noticeably pissed off. She's angry. She doesn't trust him. She knows something's off about him. Maybe she doesn't suspect it's a robot, but whatever. Something's off about him. She's pissed off. But by Alien, she's like throwing Burke against the wall. Paul Reiser's looking all crazy. Um, so she's a no nonsense character, and I think that's one thing kind of worth talking about. How it was this arbitrary thing to take this character who was the lead, was at least the character who would ultimately use their wits, their cunning, their maybe just good luck, good sense to survive. And again, in most drafts, maybe it was a man, but they said, "Hey, how about we make it a woman? Make it Ripley." Very gender neutral names. They don't call each other by their first. I don't even think this movie, unless there's something maybe in the background on a computer, maybe on like a name tag, but even that I kind of doubt. I don't think we know her first name until Aliens as Ellen. So they're all kind of referred to by their last name. Ripley, Dallas, Brad Parker, Lambert Kane, etc. Actually, I don't know if they're all their first names or last names, but whatever. Anyway, just kind of these gender neutral names, and hey, let's make this character a woman. And that's always kind of the thing you hear about the best female characters, in that they're not written specifically to be women. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not. I'd say most writers at this time, or even now, like, I don't know what the percentages of like most screenwriters being men. They're like, well, how do we write a woman, right? So, in being written as a man originally, I think it sort of, in a way that's not even intentional, kind of made Ripley this uh, character that kind of stood for kind of like this feminist movement in pictures, where we could have a character who was a woman who would be, kind of a badass and kind of win the day, and accentuated again to the power of 10 and like Aliens. Like, that was everything about Aliens. Like, let's take Alien and like inject it with adrenaline, was exactly what they did. But the fact that you list best characters in franchises, in action, adventure, sci-fi, horror, franchise, whatever, you're gonna list Rambo, you're gonna list John McClane, and you're gonna list Ripley. And that's a testament, one, to that decision. If this were just another male character, maybe it wouldn't have worked out as well. Maybe it would have. Who knows? But and it is also a testament to Sigourney Weaver's great acting ability. And again, this was her breakthrough role. Other actors in here, they were known. I think just a year before, John Hurt, he was in Midnight Express, a great movie. He was nominated for an Oscar for that. Best thing about that movie, I thought he was great in it. Ian Holm, well-known actor. I think MASH had come up before this. Wasn't Tom Skerritt in MASH? I don't know, whatever. Yaphet Kotto was a fucking Bond villain, and Harry Dean Stanton was Harry Dean Stanton, and he's the most amazing person in the world. But here we have a look at the fucking facehugger, which, again, I think this is another asshole thing of Ash. Getting back to the whole, is how much does he know, how much of a plan there is. He hits the reflex on the thing, and he must know at this point that that thing, plants its seed and then dies. And so, just to like fuck with everybody, he hits the reflex. That's what I think. But anyway, we get a really grisly look here at kind of how it looks, and looks very vaginalistic, if that's a word. Is that a word? But this is kind of this type of imagery. One contributing talent to the movie that I haven't even mentioned yet on this commentary. H.R. Geiger, who, you know, the brilliant psychosexual art that he produced inspired this movie. These weird alien shit, this weird, alien raping people, and here we have this creature that its innards, look like a vagina, and then of course, afterwards we have the full grown alien has that inner jaw, that pops out, and kind of phallic on that. So there is, weird twisted sexuality to the creature, which, there's a whole other commentary track probably someone else, not me, could record, talking about the Freudian nightmares of this movie, and kind of, the weird twist on men giving birth. It's like a weird Freudian thing, and even like later in the movie, again, Ash just being an asshole. Making his little comments here. They talk about the alien creature, how it's somewhere on the ship, and he's like, Kane's son. It's like, why would you say that? But anyway, it's just this weird thing. But they're getting off the ship, or getting off the, no, don't get off the ship. They're getting off the planet now. This is actually just a reverse shot of their original landing to save money. No, actually, I have no idea, but it kind of looks like it. Another kind of big risk is getting off the goddamn planet. First, they got to land on it, then they got to get off it. So it's this whole thing. I feel so bad for these guys, and we're still at the point in this movie where you kind of think in the back of your head, maybe everything's going to be okay. Maybe this is it. And that's probably what they're all thinking too. Like, well, this creature, it got on this guy's face and it died, and I guess that's it. So, let's go home. Little do they know, though, they now have a cargo on the ship that's more valuable than any of the spices or whatever the fuck they have. So, no sign of Han Solo yet, so maybe later. I don't think they're in the same universe, but a lot of people say that it's in the same universe as Blade Runner, which I can buy, and even Outland. The Sean Connery movie. If you haven't seen Outland, by the way, it's a great movie. I did talk about it on my channel a little bit, and I think one of my VHS memories video. It's the same production company, so it is Brandywine Productions, and it's like this science fiction update to High Noon, where Sean Connery plays this guy in this mining facility in space, and everyone's corrupt, and he has to fight the headhunters and whatever, and make his last stand. It's so visually similar to Alien, and it feels like it could take place in the same universe. So anyway, if you haven't seen Outland, give that a look. But here's another great scene with Brett, where I don't know, like their cigarettes are really weird in this movie. If you look at them, they look like they're the paper on them is yellow or whatever. But he's like, right, you're like a regular parrot, right? Anyway, Kane's awake. John Hurt. He had this horrible dream about smothering, and little does he know. And what is this thing that he's wearing, by the way? It looks like it's lingerie, or like, how is that, one, comfortable, two, practical in any way, shape, or form? Like, it's like opened at the chest. It looks like it's a hospital gown reversed, sort of, but I don't know. Whatever. I just think it's weird. But anyway, fucking Ash. Look at Ash again. He's just taking notes with his eyes. That bastard. Goofy fucking Brett there with his shit-eating grin. Back to the old Freezerino. So, up to this point, we're like, close to an hour in the movie. It was a slow burn. We had some, things here and there. But here we are finally at the catalyst scene that kind of sets everything in motion. After this, everything intensifies quite a bit. And we're at the last meal, and what did Dallas say? Let's back to the old freezer, let's get another meal. I'm buying. So I don't know if he was just joking about that, or if like on the spaceship, maybe it's like a like a mini bar in a hotel where if you want the really good stuff, you got to pay for it. So I don't know, like how long could their rations really survive? It looked like they just got like a lot of noodles and again those weird yellow cigarettes. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, Ficato's talking about I like to eat pussy. Then Kane was so offended by this, he starts choking. What's the matter? The food ain't that bad, baby. Yeah. It always reminds me of that scene in Spaceballs where it's like literally like a stand-up comic. But anyway, there's Ash again. He's just, he's looking. Um, Here it is, the chest burster scene, which is always terrifying. Again, so many different stories about this scene, how the actors didn't know or did know what was going to happen. I don't know. It kind of becomes urban legend. We think maybe he's having a seizure. What's going on? And this is the moment, right there. It's like, holy fuck, just see the look on Yaphet Kotto's face, where it's like, what the fuck? um, oh god, and that's when something so holy shit, that is terrible. Oh, poor Veronica Cartwright. Oh, it's just looking at their faces. Like this is the kind of scene you go back and just like look at all their faces and just the despair and. Of course, Ash is like, for God's sake, don't touch it, because he knows what's going on. But then again, you look at Brett. Next time you watch this movie, or you can even rewind right now, watch again, whatever. Look at Brett throughout this whole movie, throughout this whole scene specifically. He's just kind of, I don't know, the dummy of the group, but he has this dumbfounded look throughout the whole scene. And I don't know, it's just so funny. So that every time I watch this movie, I try to focus on a different character's face and see their reaction, whether it be legitimate acting or whether it was this huge surprise that no one knew about. But I'd imagine it was a very elaborate effect that they couldn't really keep secret. But anyway. Here we are. I guess this is kind of a makeshift funeral for Kane. They're all still in shock there, but one thing's for sure, they gotta jettison the body, right? I mean, they can't leave that. Who knows what else is gonna come out of there? If a monster came out of his chest, what the hell's gonna come out from wherever else? So it is a sad scene. When you think about it, like again, there's relationships between these people, there's rapport between these people, and here they are with this kind of makeshift funeral, and it's like, well, Dallas says, does anybody want to say anything? And what can you say? It's such a shocking fucking event. Like imagine wherever you're working right now, maybe you have a good relationship with your coworkers, whatever. Imagine one of them just has a fucking monster leap out of their chest, and you have to say a few words as you jettison their body. I don't know. Kind of a tough thing to do. But here's where we get a little more of that kitchen sink acting, I guess, kitchen counteracting, where I'd say probably going in this scene they had, what their characters had to say, what they had to plan, what they're going to do, who's going to go with who. They probably had a general outline, and here we have Ash with his tracker device, I'd say inferior to what they have in Aliens, like the bloop, bloop, bloop. Ripley kind of putting her input in, what's a key on? Micro changes in air density, he says very sourly. Like, if she's acting like she doesn't like him, he's starting to, give it right back to her, as much as I guess a robot can. So again, kind of a uneasy relationship between the two. Even, when things get really serious, they should all be working together, things like that. I don't want any heroics out of you, Parker. Parker's kind of fucking had it at this point. Chewing his gum. Badass. Brett with a cigarette. Yeah, I always wondered, you can't smoke on a plane, but well, I guess you could. They just don't allow it. But in the future, they're still smoking quite a bit. Anyway, here's a this whole scene is a very tense scene, and kind of right from this moment, it builds up so well because, and I think that's another necessary thing to do because we just had that hugely shocking scene. We just had the whole thing, the monsters bursting out of the guy's chest, and it's terrifying and it's horrific. But we want to show this full formed creature now because the chest burster is just a one shot deal. We just show it as is, little baby chest burster thing. But we want to get to reveal the actual alien in the movie Alien. So we're an hour into the movie. We want to show the alien. So there is kind of probably a tricky balance that they have to tone out because we want to lead into it effectively enough. So I think this scene where they are looking, and of course who they find, they track on it, but they find the cat, and that's like to the movie's credit, or maybe not to the movie's credit, I don't know, but like they even like have a name for that, the cat in the alleyway scene. So there's always going to be a scene in these types of movies, or in like horror movies in general. They're walking down a dark alleyway, and then all of a sudden, a cat jumps up. Yeah, you see that in so many different movies, but they find the cat in here. But what's clever about it is that they grasp onto that. So, in a sense, it's a false scare where we're slowly tracking some movement. Beep beep beep. What are we gonna find? Then boom, it's the cat. Kind of a false scare there, but they latch onto that where all of a sudden the scene, it becomes about, well, okay, and another thing I love about this movie, it feels that the characters make fairly logical decisions because, of course, what are you going to say when you finally find the cat and then it scurries away? You're going to say, wait a minute, we got to get that cat because we're going to be using that tracker thing that tracks, that keys onto micro changes in air density, and we're just going to find the cat again. And we're going to be wasting our time, and we're going to be running around and getting shocked by the cat again. So we got to go find the cat. So then it all becomes, Brett finding the cat, and it follows that false scare into the very real scare, which is finding the alien, which, the rest is history or so. So here they are. They have the net ready. They're still expecting again, I hate doing this. I'm going back to Arnold Schwarzenegger again. Just describing what's... Oh, gosh, that scared me. I feel like I'm describing the movie again, but that's... again. See, it's so funny. Like, he's like, oh, it's just a cat. You fucking idiot. Get the fucking cat. Because we're just going to pick it up on the tracker again, So... Brett is grinning like an idiot again. Like, it's just the cat. Anyway, they go find the cat. Nobody's happy about that. Now they gotta go find Jonesy. And that leads into that. That's another thing I like here. This is a great shot. I love this. This kind of pyramid-looking entryway, or whatever you want to call it. This is like a goldish kind of room, lit so well. It's so beautiful, and kind of follows him still. He's like just encumbered in sweat. I just love this shot. And then we see, of course, this whole room here, with again the great ambient sounds in this movie. Like one of the most memorable things about Alien is one. Well, let's say the most memorable things about the sound design in Alien and the sounds we hear. One is like the wind from just outer space wind, whatever you want to call it. It goes whatever. Another is the kind of computer music, like zzz, yeah, that's what a computer sounds like. Anyway, and another that I always remember, that always kind of tunes into my memory, that associates with my memory of this movie, is the chiming of those chains. And it's this room. I guess it's like a, oh gosh, there goes the cat. Um, get him, get him, run, 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 Brett. Ah, oh, he didn't get the cat. Fuck. Anyway, um, oh, that's really cool too. So he sees, there's a hint. Again, I love how the movie just kind of, it seems so obvious now, especially if you're a fan, like the whole life cycle. But here, how it's like kind of hinting to the audience kind of what's going on. It's shedding its skin. Anyway, but the I'm so sorry for this whole scatterbrain commentary, but the jingling of the change, like I guess it's like a coolant room or something like that. Uh, Whether or not that makes any kind of practical sense, that there's, this dripping of the water, looks like rain, liquid splashing, all that stuff. Who knows, if that's a practical thing. But guess what? One, it looks cool. Two, it makes for really creepy sounds and a creepy atmospheric scene. So, a movie like this, in general, I mean, it earns the scares it gets with the tension that it builds up. Too many movies, they're trying to shock outright the audience without building up to it. So again, slow burn, kind of the phrase you want to associate with this movie, but just the tension that's built up in the scene and just how beautiful it looks. Like, I mean, really, you could say this about. You could say about like the Star Wars movies and how they relate to, kind of the serials of the past, silent serials. Alien, most definitely, you could, equate it to silent horror films. Very visual, it's a movie that you could watch with the volume off, which technically I'm doing right now. No, well, I have the volume very, very low so I can hear those wonderful sounds. But it's such an intensely visual movie that you almost don't need the sounds. But you have the great sounds, you have the great music, you have a great movie. This is such a fucking great movie. I love it. So, I mean, this whole fan commentary is, either Arnold Schwarzenegger or, like the Chris Farley show, where it's like, that part in Alien where, like, the monster, it bursts out of the guy's chest. Yeah. That was scary. Anyway, here he is getting the cat, and what did they say? I think they used like a Rottweiler to get the cat to. Ooh, there's a tail. Get a good reaction. Ooh, look at that. That's magic. This is magic. And look at that thing. Look at the size of that fucking thing. It's our first look, the legendary first look at the iconic character, creature, or whatever you want to call it, the alien. You see like the drool coming out, and here it is. Here's that. Oh, I love that shot too, with like the shadow coming over him, and its mouth opening, and it's just so quick. And I love how, with such a quick scene, they linger on Jonesy. I love that. And I know in the director's cut, they added something that I don't really care for. They added a whole kind of, epilogue to that scene, I guess, where Ripley and Parker, they hear what's going on, and they're like, "Hey, Brett," and they look up, and then blood is trickling down on their clothes, and it's kind of like maybe a little too much. Maybe works fine, I suppose, for the director's cut, but this is my preferred version of the movie. Again, as I mentioned, there are a few pacing improvements, and yeah, I would say there are improvements, and a few cuts here and there, a few additional scenes. Obviously, the most talked about, the most known, would be the cocoon scene, where Dallas is in a cocoon and Ripley takes the flamethrower, kills him. That's probably the most talked about, and one part where I think Kane, he takes out a little gun or something like that right before he looks into the egg, which I always thought was pointless. Like, okay, so he has this little gun thing, he's pulling it out, and he puts it away. Great. This is very pointless. Thank you. Things like that here and there, and sort of like a cat fight kind of scene between Lambert and Ripley, which I liked. Here, oh, did you just see that? Ripley gave Ash the fucking look of death. Another great shot, kind of like a Star Warsy shot of the Nostromo panning across the top of the screen. I love that, and this is where things are getting intense. Like, okay, whatever this thing is, we got to kill it. And this is the scene where Dallas has to make, a tough decision. And again, he's in the womb of Mother. He's like, the fuck we do? And Mother's like, I don't know. And it's like, well, you're on your own. Another thing I want to say about this, womb room, the mother womb room, say that 10 times fast. I remember first time I saw this movie was on VHS tape, and I don't know if it was just the coloring on my VHS or the definition of my TV, whatever. But I remember this room looking so white. But here it's kind of, I don't know, more of a cream color, I guess. But this is a great shot too, moving backwards and revealing, Kane, not Kane. Kane's dead. Ash once again with his tracker and Ripley preparing, and they're getting ready the shaft, and Dallas is about to get the shaft in the shaft, and we all know what happens. So this is kind of the thing where, or like the key kind of point in the movie where the audience is taken aback, because for the most part, I mean, yeah, John Hurt, fairly known actor. Yeah, Ficado, fairly known, but for the most part, they're not like huge stars. But captain of the ship, Tom Skerritt, he's the he's the biggest star in this movie, at least at the time, and everyone kind of thinks, okay, Tom Skerritt, he's the man. Look at that beard. He's all man. He's gonna win the day. He's gonna get some shit done. And then what happens? He gets killed or captured, whatever you want to put it, by the aliens. So this was a scene that completely took the audience off guard. Probably, I would say. Kind of like Deep Blue Sea. If you want to think about that. No, I just actually the reason why I'm thinking about it is I remember listening to the commentary of Deep Blue Sea with Rennie Harlan, where it's like, yes, I cast Samuel L. Jackson in the movie because of Alien, because everyone thought Tom Skerritt would be the good guy who would win the day, and that's what I did with Samuel L. Jackson, because everyone loves Samuel L. Jackson. And then, of course, Samuel L. Jackson gets eaten by a shark mid-speech, where it's like, we gotta work together. Kabloom, shark eats him. Big CGI shitty shark. Anyway, one of the great joys in film watching is watching a Rennie Harlan commentary. I want you to know that. Even if you hate his movies, watch a Rennie Harlan commentary. I don't know what it is. I wish I had this ability on this commentary here, but I feel like I'm just rambling and no one's getting anything out of this. But he can make his movies sound like a fucking masterpiece. Like, I swear to God. And, like, he's such a nice guy, and everyone's his friend. He's like, oh, yeah, he's my good friend, and this guy. I guess that's a Argentinian accent, or where is he from? He's not from America, but he just sounds like the nicest guy in the world, and so enthusiastic about his movies. So watch Deep Blue Sea with commentary, and I think you'll fall in love. But anyway, we have Tom Skerritt about to meet his death, which, again, you always kind of associate certain things with this movie. You associate, the alien stuff. You associate, the eggs, the facehugger, the alien, the chest burst, whatever. I also associate flamethrowers, the alien movies. Honestly, I can't even think of, any other movie series or any singular movie that I can think of, maybe other than, like The Deer Hunter, where De Niro's like shooting fire at, the Viet Cong, where flamethrowers are used, because I think they're pretty impractical as weapons, at least from what I've heard. But scare off a creature because they think, okay, well, this creature's got to be scared of fire. Oh, What's that? It's alien goop. Look at the shock on his face. That's great. Um, Not the most impressive alien goop I've ever seen. Like, it looks just kind of like, I don't know, Vaseline or something like that. You look at like something like even like you know, even in Aliens, what was it, Spunkmeyer or somebody? They're like going on the ship and they like feel the side of the door and they're like, "Ew, what's this?" And then like this big gloop comes out. Here it's sort of unimpressive, I'd say. Which not to knock the movie, but whatever. So again, a very a very tense scene in this movie. They're seeing the radar and the thing. It's coming right towards you. Got to get out of there, and you can see his like soul leaving his body in this scene where, and fucking Ash again, just watching Ash throughout this movie is just so aggravating. But anyway, here he goes. No, oh, and he's dead. That's very sad. But yeah, you could like see, him going from like gauge 10 super manly hero to like 0 scared, gonna shit his pants, get out of there. So I guess if we want to consider what happens in the director's cut is what really actually everything happens. So I guess he wasn't killed by the alien, but he was captured from the alien. As Parker says, this is all we found. No blood, no Dallas. So what's going on? So by I always kind of wondered why they would put that line into the movie. Like, the alien's doing something with these people, like it grabs Brad, but grabs Dallas. But let's say, between 1979, 1986, where they just had this one movie, and they didn't establish, like, the whole cocooning stuff, and the whole life cycle with the queen and gathering people to put in their hive and all that stuff. You gotta kind of wonder what exactly the alien is doing with these people. Like, is it saving them for food? Does it gain sustenance off human flesh, or does it simply kill, kill, kill? It is just this kind of entity that doesn't seem like it needs any kind of sustenance. It seems like it is just designed to kill and then die. Like, they kind of talk about how, I forget the either costume designer or writer or whatever. And one of the making ofs on the DVD, they're like, it starts off kind of this pinkish, humanish color, but as you can see, it gets darker and blacker, and it's like it's rotting. It's like it's deteriorating really quickly. It has such a short lifespan, so it has to do something. So it is like I don't know, like this virus that has to latch onto things and kill things. Like humans, which I think Prometheus kind of got into a little bit. Sort of suggesting that maybe humans are a side effect or afterbirth of some kind of whatever technology was found up there in LV-429 or whatever the other planet was. Not LV-426, but yet another scene where Ripley and Ash are conflicting with each other, and this is kind of, I mean, obviously it's the last straw for Ripley, so she's not taking any more shit. And I think here would have been the scene where she asked Veronica Cartwright, Lambert, I think where it cuts right there, where they both share a look with each other. I think that would have been the scene where she asked, like, you ever fuck him? You're like, what? He's like, I have a feeling he's a robot. What do you think? But just aside, that scene previously, like, it's intercut. We have that scene, they share a look, then we have this scene. But in between that, I love that look, that short little scene. It's like 10 seconds, 10 to 15 second scene, with the Yaphet Kotto kind of nervously walking around with his flamethrower. He's like, what the fuck? But I love that. But here's where Ripley kind of finds out the truth, and where, as I think this is kind of the moment, despite a fairly strong stance that she's had within the group, wanting to stay to the protocol, wanting to just focus on killing this fucking thing. Let's proceed with Dallas's plan, things like that. I think in this moment where it is a moment of enlightenment. Uh, Unfortunately, where she finds it. Special Order 937. Yeah, why couldn't September 37th be Alien Day instead? Never mind, did I just say that? But she finds out, yeah. Crew expendable. All other priorities rescinded. So, that's when, as David Fincher put it, she rises out of the periphery of the story. She becomes who we latch onto. So there's a whole process here. So we originally latch onto Kane because he happens to be the first person we see in the movie, and so that kind of sets the game for a little bit later when he'll become Father of the Year in giving birth to the chest burster. But then after all that, I do think just because one, he's the captain, two, the casting, Tom Skerritt, we kind of latch onto him. We think he's going to lead us to, all things good. He's dead, or he's gone, captured, cocoon, whatever. Now at this point, this is when Ripley, undoubtedly, she's the main character in the movie. And it just so happens at this point, she's in trouble because guess what? That's a fucking robot. Ash is a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot. And this scene, I think it was good to kind of intersplice, the scenes where aliens creating carnage between, human on human carnage, but then, oh, by the way, it's not a human, it's a robot. So I think it's a good twist. And I know, one of the original writers, I don't know if it was Dan O'Bannon or Ronald Shusett, one of them said, oh, we don't want the Russian in the crew kind of twist to it. But I do think it works well. And I think, all the little glances, all the little, scenes of mistrust, I think it pays off tremendously in this scene. And it is such a bizarre kind of attitude that he kind of takes on once he is revealed. I guess he's finally able to reveal his true self as a robot, which is completely devoid of any personality and just, sweating this weird white stuff, which would be his innards, I guess, instead of red blood. And, we see in the background these pictures of deviled eggs and topless women. It's like, what are these guys into over here? But another interesting thing is, I think, they talk about it too. And if we're going to go into the whole Freudian, analysis of the movie, probably as a robot, being surrounded by all this, usually would be titillating imagery. Like, I'm titillated by deviled eggs and topless women. He's putting this phallic object in his, prey's mouth, almost as if to commit a rape, like the alien. Maybe he's learning a little bit from it, but maybe he doesn't have genitalia, we would suppose. And so I don't know. It's his idea of what sexuality would be as a robot would possibly try to understand it, if that makes any sense. Which, again, I'm not a student of Freud, so I don't know. But that white liquid gushing out of his mouth has me thinking. But I will say this for this movie, or for the characters in this movie. Even though, Yaphet Kotto, so you just knocked his head off, I think, for all the flack that Veronica Cartwright gets for kind of being the whiny character, which, she, the whole story is she originally wanted to be Ripley, and she, misinterpreted, her casting results or whatever. She's like, I don't want to be this role. This character does nothing but complain. And, she was coaxed into it saying, no, you're the voice of the audience. You're expressing the same kind of concern that the audience has and the same kind of fears that the audience has. She's like, okay, so how much do I cry? And then she proceeds to cry. But here, I think this is Veronica's scene. I really do. She gets Ripley away to safety. She takes the prod. She zaps the shit out of Ash. And she saves Parker too. So I think that was her scene. That was her moment to shine. And I appreciate a move like that in this movie. And then, of course, what do you do when you defeat the robot? You bring him back to life, which only seems like the logical thing to do. Here, I'll tell you right now. I mean, maybe I'm doing so good with the commentary thing. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. If you're still listening, maybe I've captured your interest. But one thing I'll always remember about the Ridley Scott commentary, he says right here, not a bad cut from a head that's not bad. Which I love. Every time I watch the movie, I hear that in my head. Not a bad cut from a head that's not bad, uh, which maybe generous. That's the one effect in the like. Even you look at some of the, I guess, very obvious shots of it being a man in a costume, a 7-foot African man in a costume. Um, Even with that, you can still suspend your disbelief. But I don't know what it is when you bring a fake phony head into the picture. It's just unconvincing. I think that's the one chink in the armor of Alien. I really do. I think that head is bad. Um, and it's not a bad cut from a head that I guess is not that bad, but you know, whatever. But some great under the table acting from Ian Holm there. So, I don't know what happened. I was doing King Lear one day, and my head is under a fucking table. I'm covered in jizz the next. So yeah, Ian Holm, by the way, a great King Lear. If you ever get a chance, I think they have a home video recording of his performance, and yes, he gets completely naked, and you see Ian Holm's dick. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting off the track here. So they're talking about wanting to kill the alien. Ash says simply, "You can't. It's the perfect organism, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or all delusions of morality." He admires it. He really does. So I think that's pretty fucking harsh. How do we kill it, Ash? You can't. I can't lie to you about your chances, but my sympathies. Gives that fucking, of all the facial expressions, it's that fucking asshole smile that he gives right there. And then of course, not a bad cut to a head that's not bad. Finally they're like, we'll take our chances. We'll take the shuttle. We'll get the fuck out of here. At this point, after all this, I love this shot too, taking Lambert by the arm. Parker almost looks like this pulp fiction Amazonian adventure man or something like that, with his shirt torn. And he's grabbing this little girl by the arm who's just had enough. I love that. And then boom, take his face off. But I love this shot too. It's kind of a lower shot. Tracking the trio, the final trio that's surviving, and seeing what they can do. It's a great, we have the plan. Look, a little lens flare, just a little bit goes a long way. JJ, take that into heart. But here's their plan to obviously, get the fuck out of there, get out of Dodge, leading to, obviously what would happen between Brett and Lambert, which again, it might be. I have so many favorite scenes of this movie, but what do you do? They separate, and again, I think one of the things is one thing they talk about. Again, this whole movie and why it kind of stands up the way it does, and it is about misdirecting the audience. So, what do you think? You think she's on her own, so she's the one who's going to die? Because that's kind of how it goes. Parker goes off. No, Brett. Brett goes off as an own. He dies. Dallas goes into the shaft alone. He dies. Here's Ripley, pulling up her hair. Got to get my hair did before I go in the shuttle. It's a long drive. You think she's going to die because she's off alone. But then we have another cat scare. It's like she hears Jones on the speaker. It's like, okay, what's going on here? I got to save the cat because, I don't know, the cat has just gone through so much. Jonesy, we love you. And just a kind of a side note, by the way, I almost named my cat Ripley. More of a girl's name, though, so his name ended up being Rocky, because he's a boy, so after Rocky Balboa, but Who knows? Maybe we'll get him a girlfriend and name him Ripley, Rocky and Ripley. So there's that. Anyway, so what's going on in the movie right now? Yaphet Kotto, Veronica Cartwright. They're preparing. They're getting. I guess I never really got it. Like I guess oxygen tanks. To be prepared for their journey out in the shuttle because there wouldn't be enough oxygen for three people. It's designed, I guess, just for one. So I guess Ripley lucked out there. Um, but they're preparing that. And Ripley's off on her own again. Arnold Schwarzenegger, they're doing this, they're doing that. But I guess I don't know where it would have been in the overall timeline of the movie, either after Dallas's death or after Ash. Probably after Dallas's death, where aside from the cocoon sequence, which was completely filmed, was put in the movie. There was the whole airlock sequence where they caught the alien, but then it got away or something like that. That was only partially filmed, so there are a few snippets of that, on the DVD. I'd love to see somehow, cause look at what was Alien Isolation, the video game. They got most of the cast to record voices. Maybe they could do motion capture and CGI them in. Somehow complete that scene and put it back. Do a completely new director's cut. Even put back the quote quote outtakes where there's another scene that didn't quite make it to the director's cut where it's just in the morning. Well, whatever morning morning is considered to be in space, where we have Kane and Lambert just kind of having coffee, shooting the shit after they wake up. Just a completely alternate cut, because that's kind of the cool thing about home video and movies that have large followings like this one, where if you've seen it a million times, yeah, another version would be kind of cool to see. So we have this in the director's cut right now, but I'd like to see another version. I'd like to see more put in, and I'd like to see that airlock sequence completed somehow, any way possible, however they could do it. So I don't know, just food for thought there. But this is another great shot. We see the shadow coming up, kind of moving, twisting a little bit, and well, hey, how about this? In another director's cut, there was the crab walk. You know how the alien kind of moved on its hind legs with its tail up and things like that. Oh my god, that look of horror in Veronica Cartwright's face is, it's just so tragic. I think, because out of the characters in this movie, there's so many that stand up to the occasion, but she just seems so beaten down. And here, look, she's petrified by this fucking alien thing coming up to kill her, and Parker desperately trying to tell her to get out of the way. But I think she's had it. I think at this point she is, in so many ways, ready to die, and kind of a foolish move in an attempt to save her. Be the big tough guy. Yaphet Kotto, Parker, he, tries to battle with it and just doesn't hack it. But, I think he put up either as good or not quite as good fight as Charles Dance did in Alien 3. It's okay, this creature is the most powerful thing ever and it can't be killed, but then, they kind of changed the rules and, Charles Dance in Alien 3 is come and get me, motherfucker. And he's fighting him and putting up a pretty good fight. But anyway, there they are. They're dead. So see, well, oh god, this is terrifying. Hearing the last gasps of Lambert. That's so terrifying. And here we see, when Ripley finally comes upon him again. So many great just facial expressions on the actors in this movie. But we see that the alien just killed them and left them for dead. So it's not taking them away to eat them later or anything like that. So just killed them and was on its way. Oh, and just left them fucking mutilated. Oh, so horrible. And the fact that we don't get a clear look at it, it does make it, I think, scarier because if they showed, say, like this over the top gore, blood splattered all over the walls, intestines hanging off cords, or whatever, I don't think it'd be as scary because a lot of the principle that's kept in tune with Alien, same with Jaws. It is that it can just show us so much, and the rest we kind of leave in our imagination. And obviously, no matter what movie magic is presented to us, whatever we keep to our imagination is going to be scarier. So to just give us partial looks of this creature, just partial, very quick cuts and partial, quick, views of how they mutilate them. I mean, we've been through enough in this movie. We've seen the creature burst through, John Hurt's chest. I think that's quite enough, quite sufficient. But again, it's like kind of the principle of the less is more, which they can shows all these great effects, these CGI things, and even like with something like Prometheus, which I loved. It did kind of go a little overabundant in showing all these great effects. But the thing is, I don't think Prometheus was trying to be as tense of a movie, monster in the house kind of movie as Alien is. Like very clearly, it took a lot of inspiration from in the science fiction area of things. It took inspiration from kind of the effects and atmosphere that we saw in something like 2001: A Space Odyssey, in kind of the lived-in aspect of the spaceships, of the technology of Star Wars. Like Star Wars, aside from 101 things you could list that Star Wars was amazing at, it did kind of show a future that was lived in. We see like a kind of dusty old speeder. We'd see a spaceship like the Millennium Falcon that looked like it had a few miles on it. And the same is with the Nostromo, and it has that lived-in kind of feel, and it has these salt of the earth sort of workers bonding with each other kind of feel to it. This is another great part. Like this is like if you have epilepsy, don't watch this part of the movie. It's a strobe light, but it's such a great again kind of the very slow look. That's like a half a second shot, but that is so terrifying. It just leaves it up to your mind. Then we see like a little bit of his head popping through, and that is so terrifying. And she's like, going in hysterics almost. Like, look at her just drenched in sweat and not knowing what to do. So I can't really remember if this is either before or after the cocoon sequence from the director's cut. I don't really remember, but here it is looking at the cat. It's like, fuck you, cat. But no, it's like fascinated by the cat because, amongst other things, there's always like these kind of hints with the cats, like with the cat. Even in the one really weird thing that doesn't get called to attention that much is the fact that in the chestburster scene, the cat's just fucking there in the background, eating its food along with everyone else. So it must be one of those cats that wants to eat when everyone else eats. My cat's like that, and that's just how cats are, or whatever. No one ever seems to call attention to that. Just, I mean, there's enough going on, but whatever. So here's Ripley trying to back out of the self-destruct, and this, I would say it's a risky portion of the movie because here we have no other characters. We have Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, on her own, and the only interaction she has is with Mother, with the spaceship's computer. And I do like the "you bitch" comment, but that's about it. So the rest, it is fairly silent, aside from the actual sound, music of the movie. But it's a risky thing, especially probably like, I'd say a good probably 15, 20 minutes left in the movie. We just have one character running around. So that is a risky thing. But I think they pull it off and keep it engaging because we're now kind of in her shoes. We know kind of the score, and you never know. She could die. The horror movies are known to not have everyone live in the end, but sometimes there is the final survivor, such as with this, such as with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So again, I was talking about from the sci-fi portion of things, it had inspiration from Star Wars, had inspiration from 2001, and I'm sure like Star Trek, but also just kind of from its sort of realistic feel, its natural feel. It did kind of take a page, I think, from uh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it felt almost documentary like. Like there's a lot of scenes in the movie where the camera shakes a lot, which you'd never see in Star Wars except for The Force Awakens. But it would have like a polished look, but here they do have these incredible tracking shots. I suppose they're Steadicam shots. I'm not sure, but if they aren't, they certainly do the job of a Steadicam shot. And other scenes, they're just so unpolished. The camera shakes a little bit. Camera's tilted a little bit. Things are obscured a little bit. So it does have, kind of like what a lot of movies in the 70s were doing, giving this more realistic feel, this less polished feel, which I think works. So it definitely has that kind of inspiration from that. And probably, I mean, I guess sort of the elephant in the room when it comes to Alien and where it gains its inspiration is that, it is very, very similar to It, the Terror from Beyond Space, which has a similar kind of plot where the spaceship, you know, goes on to some secluded planet and picks up a stowaway alien. In this one, I think the it creature just kind of stows away, and the ultimate resolution is the same as what Ripley does at the end of this film, which is blow it out of the airlock. So very similar. Like if you've seen the movie, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen It, the Terror from Beyond Space, check it out. Draw your own conclusions. It seems almost a little bit too similar to be that much of a coincidence. But either way, I mean, like fucking any B movie from the 50s about an alien is pretty much the same. So this, I think, one, it took that sort of realistic look to it. Like, look at that effect right there. You know, the what's the little pod called, the Narcissus or something like that. Uh, that looks as good as any CGI shot. Honestly, it really does. And look at the shaking of the camera there. Again, looks really good. And probably, I don't know. I feel always a little bit on the fence about the the effect of the blowing up, because you look at something like Star Wars with Death Star, it's like a big explosion, but wouldn't an explosion in space be a little bit different? And so we look at this explosion, one, the big flash of light, two, kind of the sort of eruption there that looks a little bit again, sort of like, I'd say 2001: A Space Odyssey, kind of getting some inspiration from that. So it kind of has that matte painting, well, not matte painting, but like rotoscope painting, whatever technology they use, I don't know, look to it. So it doesn't look like, typical Hollywood explosion, but at the same way that makes it stand out. Like, look at that. Look at it just come out like clouds of whatever the fuck. It very much looks like 2001. It's like, it's different. If it's not like the most perfect effect in the world, it stands out. It's unique, and a great steady close up, slow close up on Ripley. I got you, you son of a bitch. So that's great, and that's the end of the movie. And thank you guys for watching my commentary, and everything's fine here. I doubt the alien made it to the little escape pod. You see how big that ship was? I doubt it got on there. Oh wait, what's going on? There's no credits. The movie's still going. Okay. Well, never mind. I guess there's still a movie. Um, so I guess this is just her time of reflection. You know, think about it. All her friends, coworkers, they're fucking dead. She has the cat, which I guess is okay. And who would believe her story? Well, no one does, according to aliens. So maybe the cat will corroborate a little bit. I was wondering, like, what technology they have in the future. Like, maybe the cat has some kind of glass eye that's really like a camera. Wouldn't that be something? But maybe not. That'd be a good idea for like a movie. Doesn't the owl in Blade Runner have like a robot eye or something like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering things. But here we have a beautiful scene of human feline bonding where maybe she can't get along with an alien, but she can get along with a cat, and she makes sure to get it in the tube there, and then ow ow, it's the scene where you know typical of a horror movie, we want to see the sexy lady undress, which is always nice to see. So we're gonna be seeing that soon, and yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, and I don't know whenever I watch this movie. Well, when I get to this part, I think you went through all that, this whole movie, this whole time, all this running around, and your underwear looks like that. Isn't that uncomfortable? Like you can see, like it's like a little bit. It doesn't look like it fits right. Like she has a little bit of like the plumber's crack going on. That couldn't possibly be comfortable. But I mean, it's a horror movie. It's showing a little bit of sexiness for the male audience. Oh, Sigourney Weaver butt crack. Um, but you got to figure, how comfortable could she have been running around like that the whole time? And it caused me to think about the other cast underwear. Like, I wonder what Veronica Cartwright's underwear was like. I wonder what Yaphet Kotto's underwear was like. I guarantee you, Yaphet Kotto's underwear was like uh, a bikini brief, leopard skin. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. But we'll never know. But oh, look, the alien. I'm talking about his underwear, but the alien's back. So obviously it is stowed away because that's the rule of these types of movies. We have to have one final confrontation, one final scare, and I think this is a strong scene in the movie. Again, a tense scene where it's like, kind of like, I think Aliens took a similar cue from it, where it's like we go through so much, we go through such tension. Guess what? We're gonna get you again, and we're gonna have one final thing to fuck with you. So this is a final tense scene where it's again I'm going back to the strange sexuality of it, but obviously they're both together in this room, whether or not the alien completely acknowledges Ripley is one thing. Like obviously it brings its hand out. It knows she was there. It could have easily jumped up and killed her. And her nipples are pointy, and I wonder if she's shaved down there. But anyway, it's like this weird intimate scene where they're both in kind of the same location. They're kind of looking at each other, scoping each other out. Of course, look at that. It's like presenting itself in a weird way. If it acknowledges she's there, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about. And another weird thing is like not in this part, but in just a few moments when uh, she starts to exhale, starts to take the panic breaths, and it's really starting to lose control. You hear the panting. There's some weird trivia, and maybe I'll look at it later. Where they said they like filmed someone having sex. I don't think it was Sigourney Weaver, but they filmed somebody and they used those noises in there. I don't know. Maybe that's just an urban myth or something like that. But it seems like some weird fucked up thing that Ridley Scott might want to do, or what like H.R. Geiger would convince him to do. I don't know. But I don't know whether or not the alien acknowledges her is one thing. Like it's probably exhausted too. Killed a lot of people throughout. I don't know what was the time span here. I think it was just 72 hours or less than that. She states the amount of time in Aliens. I think it was 48 to 72 hours, somewhere around there. But whether or not it acknowledges her is up for debate. But maybe it's just sleeping too. Maybe it wants to stow away and go back to Earth with her. Maybe it has some kind of conscientious understanding of things. I don't know. It's hard to say, and I think that's one thing that I think Aliens, the sequel from James Cameron, I think that did it a little bit of a disservice to this creature, to this alien, to this xenomorph, where I think as it is, if we just want to look at Alien, 1979, Ridley Scott, just this movie on its own, standalone, it is an enigmatic creature, and we're not entirely sure what its MO is or what its abilities are. We're told it cannot be killed, and technically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, she may not have killed this creature. She just shoots it out of the airlock. So here's kind of the noises of either the sex or whatever. She just goes, he, oh, he. Anyway, so we don't entirely know exactly what this creature is, but in Aliens, they kind of just amounted it to, yeah, these are sort of insect-like creatures. They have a queen, they have a hive, they, reproduce, whatever, and they can be killed by bullets. So, hey, everything you heard about it cannot die is fine. You are my lucky, lucky star. But I think that kind of did a disservice to it. And one of the most interesting things about how this creature would operate and how they, whoa, my gosh, we don't hear Ripley scream too much throughout the series, but that is a good scream. So she's not a scream queen, but that was a good scream. There it goes. And then the alien had a good scream too, by the way. Almost like it was mimicking her in a weird, weird way. Because, as I was about to mention, one of the original inceptions or intents for the ending of the movie was to have Ripley die, to have the alien, I don't know, wrap its tail or around her neck or something, or like decapitate her and stick its digits in her neck or something like that, and communicate to Earth somehow that, hey, I'm coming back, get ready for me, in her voice, mimicking her, which that's kind of chilling to me, but I can't imagine it actually working in the movie, in all honesty. So I'm glad it ended where it ended here, and that's a great shot there, kind of like it looks like underwater, sort of. So who knows? Maybe the alien's still floating there. Like maybe later, it's like floating around in space for like 57 years, and then it like runs runs into the queen alien from Aliens. Like, hey, you're out here too? Oh yeah, me too. It's like, well, it's a long wait, and then they run into General Zod from Superman 2. So there's all these possibilities for sequels that have been untapped. So Fox, call me, write me, Gary Busey all the way. Anyway, great final speech. This is Ripley, the last survivor of the Nostromo, signing off. Again, somehow this tape was saved, and somehow it got into the Sulaco from Alien 3, and it played at the end of Alien 3. A great shot to end the movie, and we have, our character, a well-earned, return to sleep. And another thing I remember from Ridley Scott's commentary is like, oh, Sleeping Beauty, great fade. And we see the stars, and that's the end of the movie. That's Alien. That is my commentary track. So, hope you enjoyed watching Alien with me today. I rambled on about nonsense, provided no insight to the movie, but it's fun to watch and fun to just, kind of release your thoughts on the movie as they become available. And this is a movie I love. I watched a million times, and I continue to enjoy it. I enjoyed watching it again, even though I, had the volume very low, and I was talking over the whole thing. But I love it. One of my favorite movies. And it's so weird. Every time I watch, obviously, As much as I do like Alien 3, it's always a toss up between Alien and Aliens. And every time I watch Alien, I'm like, yeah, this is better than Aliens. But then every time I watch Aliens, I'm like, yeah, this is better than Aliens. So it's always going to be, I don't know, a battle between the two. But both equal. And for anybody today on 4/26/2016, Alien Day, anybody who has the great privilege to go to a double feature, a double screening of these movies, I envy you very much. That's a great double bill. Um, but we have the credits here, so I figure I'm out of things to say. So until the movie's completely 100% over, I guess I'll just how about I read through some quick trivia facts from IMDb, anything that might be interested. Okay, so here's a trivia fact. Shredded condoms were used to create tendons of the beast's ferocious jaws. Oh, I didn't know that. Um, Ridley Scott cites three films as shaping influences on this movie: Star Wars, 2001: Space Odyssey, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, I knew that. Come on, I was just talking about that. Um, Balahi Deho, who plays the alien in the movie, was a graphic artist who was discovered at a pub by one of the casting directors. He was about 7 feet tall with thin arms, just what they needed to fit into the alien costume. Okay. Inside the alien eggs are real organic material, cattle hearts and stomachs. Very delicious. Harrison Ford turned down the role of Captain Dallas. Oh, it's funny. I was talking about Han Solo this whole time. The chest bursting scene was filmed in one take with 4 cameras. The original cut of the film ran 3 hours and 12 minutes. And that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Dare237.com. And until next Alien Day, I'll see you with another commentary for Aliens. And that's it. Take care. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.